came about partly because it's one of the national initiatives that our Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism is working on. That's sort of our movement's advocacy arm in DC. So their emphasis on voter engagement and civic engagement is high on their priority list, and we'd like to work, as we always do, in partnership with them. But lastly, when Rabbi Fixler and his core team of leaders in the social justice space have been talking to members of our congregation over the past few months, it's become clear that becoming civically engaged, being connected with the democratic process is something that's very, very important to our membership. So all of those factors combine to really make it a no-brainer that we really want to be involved in this voter engagement work this year. To start us off, I want to share just a little bit of a Jewish perspective, share a little story with you to help set a bit of context about why in particular we're talking about this on Yom Kippur instead of, say, on, I don't know, the 4th of July or some other time during the year. There's a story that's told about a rabbi who's known as the Chazon Ish, who grew up in Belarus and wound up moving to pre-state Palestine and living in what became Israel in the 1930s and 1940s. He was really the forerunner of what is today modern Haredi ultra-Orthodox Judaism in Israel. So this is a very serious Jewishly observant guy. And as the story goes, one day it was election day in Israel, and the Chazon Ish was walking through the streets and he ran into a young Chassid, ran into another young Jew from his neighborhood. And the Chazon Ish said to this kid, "Have you voted yet?" And the kid says, "No, Rabbi, I haven't voted yet. There's a poll tax and I don't have the 3 lira to pay the poll tax to vote, so I haven't voted." And the Chazon Ish says, "Well, do you own a pair of tefillin?" The kid says, "Yes, of course, I own a pair of tefillin." So the Chazon Ish says, "So you should sell your tefillin to raise the 3 lira to pay the poll tax." So for the Chazon Ish, you can see that this is a clear demonstration of priorities and Jewish values, that it's very important to pray, it's very important to learn Torah, it's very important to be spiritually involved in the work of Judaism, but the work of Judaism also includes civic engagement and political involvement. This is not something that's separate to our Jewish lives, but very much intrinsic to, very much engaged in and embedded in our life as ethically, spiritually, and civically engaged human beings and Jews in the world. So with that as context, I'm very excited to sort of pass the mic now. And Emily, I think you're on.
Thank you so much for that, Rabbi Hayon. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to add a voting story that is personal to me to kind of kick things off from our perspective. In the last election in 2018, I went to my local fiesta to vote early. The man trying to cast his ballot in the booth next to me started saying things like, "Huh, and what?" I took notice when he called a poll worker over and discerned from their conversation that he was trying to vote straight ticket, but the voting machine wouldn't let him. He ultimately decided that he'd just have to vote in each individual race. So I finished voting and left, feeling sure that this gentleman wasn't going to leave without casting his ballot and that he didn't need my help. But something stuck in my craw that I couldn't quite identify at the time. And then I began seeing on my Twitter feed that voters across Harris County were having trouble casting straight ticket ballots, but only for one party. Straight ticket voting for the other party apparently worked just fine. I was crestfallen. There was a systemic problem, and it hadn't occurred to me to do anything about it. The man next to me was comfortable asking for help and had the time and wherewithal to cast his ballot, even though he hadn't planned on having to check more than one box. But what about all the people who felt flummoxed? First-time voters, those from historically disenfranchised groups, or those who are most comfortable reading a different language? I sent a distraught email to an old law school professor of mine who I knew would have no idea who I was, told him the story, and basically asked him, where are the grown-ups? Who's protecting voters down south? This professor is a well-connected man who ended up getting the story covered in the national news, which is where I felt it belonged. That day, I finally learned that at the age of 41, I guess, that we are the grown-ups. It's incumbent upon us to protect the voting process. And news isn't news unless we make it so. It's worth noting that whether straight ticket voting will even be an option in Texas is still being litigated. as are some other pretty key, key components of voting this year. But I will leave you all with that and just the feeling that we can't take anything for granted. Thanks so much. And I think now I pass it over to Bob Stein, Professor Bob Stein.
Thank you, Emily. I had been asked by the congregation some months ago, I think it seems like a year ago, to assist them in this project as part of a larger project I'm doing in Harris County and now around the country. I was able to identify some voting trends among our congregants, some of which were quite happily ones that I was proud of and some not so proud of. The good news is that all of our congregants are registered voters. But in 2018, which is one of the highest voter turnouts we've ever had in Texas in a midterm election, our congregation actually didn't break the 50% barrier. The turnout rate in Harris County was 53%, but our congregants only voted at about 48%, a number that I think is somewhat low and can be vastly improve. As part of this national project I was doing in with Harris County, we surveyed congregants about what they knew about this upcoming election. And as we all know, this is a spectacular election because it'll be now the second one since July that we've conducted under the COVID-19 pandemic. And many voters are afraid to vote at the polls in person, whether it's on early or election day. And many, many more voters would prefer to vote by mail, which obviously can reduce any threat to a viral load. I won't go into the details about what's going on in Texas, but I can say with some certainty that only voters over the age of 65, which are many of our congregants, will be able to exercise that right of obtaining and filing a mail ballot. That's good news for our older congregants because many of them are, of course, most vulnerable to the dangers of contracting the COVID-19 virus. But here's some bad news, and news that I hope the congregation can remedy. Most of our congregants do not know how to properly acquire, complete, and return a mail ballot. In the state of Texas, that may seem to be an easy task, but it's not. There are many restrictions which I could go into, but what's most important is that the congregation at least inform those voters who are eligible, mostly men and women over the age of 65, about how not only to acquire, but the most important one was that our congregation couldn't answer 50% of the questions correctly about where and when you could return your ballot. Let me say lastly here, I didn't want to take up too much time, that I know voting by mail is clearly the preferred choice of an overwhelming number of voters, not only in our congregation, but throughout the country. And yes, there is a partisan divide on this issue. But what's important to remember about Texas and Harris County is that in-person voting will be adequate and safe and give you a number of options. Let me give you an idea. The governor of the state extended early voting by 6 days, from the 23rd of October to just before 13th of October, excuse me, to just before Election Day. There will be over 121 locations of 8 hours a day of voting. The clerk will have an app that you can download to find out how long lines are and wait times. And most importantly, they will have protective equipment for both the poll workers, for the voters, and they will assure, I think, that the voting experience will be quick, convenient, and most importantly, safe. So vote early. By that, I mean what the epidemiologists tell us is push the curve of the virus down. You will have ample opportunity if you're not over 65 and not able to vote by mail to find some day, some location, and some hour where it will be safe to vote. And thank you.
Hi, everyone. Now we would like to hear from you. Shortly, you'll see some poll questions appear on your screen, and we want to know how we can help everyone at Emanu cast a ballot this cycle. And your input today will help us to determine where we need to focus our efforts. And us includes all of you who have reached out to us and expressed interest in helping with Emanu votes. I think because, Marcia, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, in a minute, we're going to be posting some questions on the Zoom poll, and then we'll go from there. First question. Annie, did you want to?
Do you have a plan to vote this year? And we'll give you all some time to answer that, and then we should be able to see the results.
The next question. How are you planning to exercise your vote this year? And the options are, is that up yet?
We're going to give it a couple more seconds here, and we're going to end the poll and share the results on number 1.
Oh,
All right, well, that's awesome news and mirrors just what Professor Stein said, that 93% of you do have a plan to vote this year. So
The next-
7% we're coming for you.
so the next question is, how are you planning to vote this year? So if you could fill that in.
I have one question about what does it mean to make a plan to vote? And we're going to be addressing that later in our presentation, exactly what we mean. We have some specifics.
So it looks like most of you are planning on voting early voting, which is great. And then the next largest percentage was voting by mail. On our website, we have all the information you need to help you figure out how to vote by mail. Next.
The next question is, what can Emmanuel Votes do to help you exercise your vote? And please feel free to select as many options as applied to you. And we do have all of these details on our website, which we'll be sharing with you on the screen shortly.
I think somebody just asked a question about that, so.
Okay, I think we're almost ready for the next one. So it looks like most of you, 80%, would like more information about voting times and locations, which you will be happy to know we have compiled all of that information on our own Emmanuel Votes website, and we'll be sharing more information about that.
There's also Harris County Votes. harrisvotes.org is another location. And I think there's direct links to that website from our website. The next question is, if you would like us to follow up and remind you to vote, how do you prefer to be contacted? And you can pick more than one, be preferable to pick one.
And thank you all for answering these questions. Such good participation right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. The next question is, if you would like us to follow up and remind you to vote, how do you prefer to be contacted? Oh,
No, they answered that. The next one is, would you be interested in it? Here, go ahead, Annie.
okay. Would you be interested in attending if we offered short Zoom sessions on specific topics, for example, in-person voting during COVID-19?
It looks about even. Most of you would prefer not to attend a different session. Well, we're very grateful that you're here at this session. The next question is, if you would like to attend a short Zoom session on voting, what topics would interest you? And select more than one if you're interested in more than one topic.
Thank you everyone so much again for answering all these questions. And also please spend some time looking at our website that should be flashed on the screen, but it's www.emmanuelhouston.org/EE votes. It has a lot of helpful logistical information about different voting methods, by mail, early, drive-through, the COVID safety precautions that Harris County is implementing, and even election day voting that will be available for the first time right here or there at Emmanuel.
It looks like a lot of you are interested in some additional Zoom sessions on in-person and drive-through voting, and we will take that under consideration and get back to you. If you find yourself with questions, need any more details, or need specific help in executing a voting plan or voting by mail, please contact Emmanuel Votes, and our email address is on the website, and I think a few of our speakers have it on the back of their screen, and someone will get back to you. Thanks. Keith?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I want to thank each of you for being a part of this program, our formal kickoff of the nonpartisan Emmanuel voting campaign. One of the goals of this campaign is to reach 100% voter turnout among our congregants. And as you heard Professor Stein said, last time around we were below the average for Harris County, and this year our goal is to make that 100%. That will take significant effort on all of our parts, not only to make sure each one of us votes, but to make sure our friends and family vote as well. The research has shown that making a voting plan can improve voter turnout by a significant percentage, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that today. And just like we're doing in our own lives at this time of year, we're making a commitment of how we intend to act in the year ahead. The voting plan is our commitment for how we intend to cast our vote. So a voting plan is just that. It's figuring out how and when we'll vote ahead on election day, before election day, or by mail, and making this plan is particularly important this year with the advent of COVID-19. Each of you will need to make a plan that works for your personal situation. So the first part of the voting plan is discussing what is the method by which you're going to cast your vote. That's by mail for eligible voters, and there are several categories of people who are eligible to vote, which are detailed on the website. In-person voting early, and you can do that. The in-person early voting has been extended at this time in Harris County and its surrounding counties. I know somebody asked, there is information about surrounding counties on the website that you can find links to local voter information. And then finally, if you're a traditionalist and you want to vote on election day, that option is available to you. One thing we're very excited to announce this year is that on election day only, Congregation Emmanuel will be a polling place. So if you are voting on election day and wish to vote in person there, you can vote at Congregation Emmanuel. Additionally, for those of you who live in Harris County, there are many options this year to cast your vote early. There are drive-in locations, there are 24-hour locations, and again, all of these are detailed on the EE Votes website and on Harris Votes as well. It's important to note for those people who are going to vote in person in Harris County, that Harris County has also implemented a number of safe initiatives this year. Those initiatives, some of the initiatives include poll workers will have personal protection equipment. Polling locations will have sanitation stations with hand sanitizer for before and after voting. Machines will be 6 feet apart, and you'll be given finger covers to avoid touching the actual voting machine. So once you determine how you're going to vote, it's important to determine when you're going to vote. And if you need additional information, I urge you to look at the EE Votes website or Harris Votes if you're in Harris County. There will be information about your eligibility to vote by mail, early voting times. You can find polling locations throughout the county. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you live in surrounding counties, we have links to those surrounding counties as well. One of the things that we've done as an extra tool this year is we have created a special for Congregation Emmanuel voters, a voting plan pledge to vote, so that you can actually go take your pledge now. And then if you wish to be reminded later, we can help encourage you to vote in accordance with the commitment you made to plan to vote. I'm going to post, and it looks like it's already posted, but I'm going to post a link here to the pledge to vote. And I would ask that each of you who knows how you're going to vote, and I think it was 93% of you said that you have a plan to vote, go ahead and click on that link now and take the pledge to vote. And while we're doing that, we're grateful to have just a few minutes of Cantor Simmons, and then we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Wanted to share a song that felt appropriate when we're talking about voting and getting involved. So this is God's Counting on Me by Pete Seeger. When we look and we see things are not what they should be, God's counting on me. God's counting on you. When we look and we see things are not what they should be, God's counting on me. God's counting on you. Hoping we'll all pull through. Hoping we'll all pull through. Hoping we'll all pull through. Me and you. When there's big problems to be solved, let's get everyone involved. God's counting on me. God's counting on you. When there's big problems to be solved, let's get everyone involved. God's counting on me. God's counting on you. Hoping we'll all pull through. Hoping we'll all pull through. Hoping we'll all pull through. Me and you. Hope that was enough time for everyone to pledge.
Thank you so much, Cantor Simmons. We're grateful to have you today, and we're grateful to all of you for joining us and taking the pledge to vote. Please vote this year.
Thanks, Keith. So you might be wondering what's next. We've developed and will continue to update our website to inform you. So please visit early and visit often. I am putting, again, the link in the chat there, so you have it. If you don't, or you get confused or forget, feel free to just go to our Emmanuel Houston website, and there will be an Emmanuel Votes link there. We will take the feedback that we've gotten today, plus the questions and comments that come through at Emmanuel Votes. There is an email as well there. So any questions or concerns that you have, please email us and we will make sure to follow up with you. Sisterhood is presenting a conversation with Professor Bob Stein, and that is going to be October 12th at 7 p.m. So there are details on our webpage and on our bulletin, and he will be going into more detail about all things election. Lastly, we will be texting, calling, emailing to help you as the congregants make and execute your plan to vote and follow up on the pledge cards. If you'd like to help with this effort, whether you're eligible to vote or not, we'd love to have you. Please email us at the Emmanuel Votes website and we will be sure to contact you. If you have already emailed us, again, we will be getting in touch with you. So thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Fixler for a brief closing.
Thank you, Lauren. And I want to begin as we close this. I know we packed a lot of information into a small time. We are so grateful to you. We really, really hope that you'll visit the webpage, which should be right above my head, where there is a lot more information, including a very highly produced video from me explaining some of the ways that you can vote this year and how to make a voting plan. I want to thank our leadership team for this Emanu Votes initiative, Annie Stein, Lauren Ziff, Marcia Nadell. You all are amazing. And thank you especially to our chairs for Emanu Votes, Emily Schaefer and Keith Remmels, who have done so much work these past 6-8 months to make this campaign happen. And we are excited for the incredibly powerful work that we are going to do in this next month and change. I want to thank Professor Robert Stein for his wisdom and guidance and teaching us and being a wonderful combination of expert and congregant and helping us to do this work in a really powerful way. And we know we have the best answers to our questions because he's the guy who's also helping the county to answer these questions. So we're grateful for that. I want to thank Rabbi David Siegel, who is here also, and our statewide partners at RAC Texas for their support and partnership. We couldn't be doing this work if we weren't a part of a much larger network of synagogues across Texas doing this work. And I want to thank everyone on this call for the work that you've done and the work that you're going to do to make sure that this is an election where everyone has the opportunity to vote. In Psalm 27, the psalmist writes, Shema Adonai koli ekra v'chaneni ve'aneni. Hear, O Eternal, when I cry aloud, have mercy on me and answer me. And we heard in our prayers this morning, Shema Kolenu, hear our voices. This is an opportunity to make our collective voices heard. Yom Kippur is a reminder that we exist at the fulcrum between the world as it is and the world as it could be. In the book of Jonah, which is read on Yom Kippur afternoon, we hear of the town of Nineveh, where everyone heard the prophet's call and repented, so God did not destroy the city. It reminds us that substantive communal action can reverse God's harshest decrees. Through voting, we lift our voices, and through our work of advocacy for equality of access to voting, we allow others to lift their voices too. We marvel at the collective power of our voices and our actions to shape the world. As this election season is about to begin, we bless the sacred act of lifting up our voices. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shemitzpeh meitanu la'asok ba'avodat ezrachut hamedina. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who expects us to engage as citizens in our country. Thank you to all of you for the sacred work that you do to make Emmanuel a 100% voting congregation. May you all be sealed for a blessing in the book of life. Thank you for being with us today for this a really exciting conversation. We are going to wrap up exactly on time, which is so it's very exciting to me, and allow people to go to the 3 o'clock sessions with Rabbi Hayon and Rabbi Silk, and we look forward to being in touch with you in the weeks and months to come. Shana Tova, everyone.